Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Of course, it's me, Kimyetta, and as I mentioned in our very first video, I like to use a number of different approaches when it comes to teaching. In fact, I believe I mentioned you'll see screencast videos, which you have already. You'll see me standing in front of the classroom. You'll have things to download. You'll have things to write. And now, this is a different kind of screencast video, and it is the kind where I'll be aiding you along as you move through the slides. I thought it was important that you really see my face and hear me really at the same time while also looking at slides. So you've got a very full plate this time around. Now we're at the point of our course where we are going to begin to turn the corner, if you will. It is critically important to understand people from different cultures in order to effectively, and I do mean effectively, communicate with them. So, as you see on the screen, a nice little umbrella I have here to show you. First and foremost, culture is not all about race. Oftentimes, that's exactly what people think. People think when someone says, well, you offended their culture, or, well, you don't understand my culture, or you've got a lot to learn about my culture. Click. People think race. But as you can see from our umbrella, I want you to walk away from this course understanding it's much bigger. Culture can relate to gender, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, nationality. Just a number of different things can make up a particular cultural group. Now, let's keep proceeding here. In fact, I will put on my glasses as I walk you along through our slides. Now, what is culture anyway? Culture is the specialized lifestyle of a group of people that is usually passed down generationally. Again, culture is the specialized lifestyle of a group of people that is usually passed down generationally. Let me give you an example. I'll often ask my students in my classes, my in-person classes, if a baby had Russian biological parents, born in Russia, biological parents are Russian, but that baby is adopted by a Hispanic family that predominantly speaks Spanish, and that Russian baby is raised by that Hispanic family. What language will the Russian baby speak? Now, I'm asking you that question. What did you say? Interestingly enough, over the years, about 65% of my students get the answer correctly, and about 35% get it incorrectly. If you said the baby will speak a Russian language, then you were incorrect. If the baby is raised in a household with the culture and the norms, the values, the beliefs, the language of a totally different racial or ethnic group, that baby is going to speak the language of that particular group. So, let's keep going. Please, it's important to keep that in mind as we proceed. Now, there are a number of myths related to culture, and let's go ahead and begin to debunk those myths, okay? Number one, people think culture is passed down through genes, that it's all genetics. No, race deals with your genes. I am African American. My mom is African American. My dad is African American. And so that my genes, the genealogy of my family is African American. We are blacks here in America. Well, listen to this. There are things that we do culturally that have nothing to do with our race. They're just things that we grow up doing. So culture isn't about genes. And as I said before, culture doesn't necessarily mean it's your race or nationality. And culture, though, is passed from generations through something called enculturation. Remember that word because it's an important word for our course. Enculturation, and it's the process by which you learn the culture into what you were born into. Remember the Russian baby that we started this with? With culture, you begin to adopt the norms, the values, and beliefs of the dominant culture that you're born into. If culturally your family is used to big Sunday dinners with the family every Sunday, then that is something you do culturally, and that maybe your children will do, and then maybe their children will do. Now, when it comes to culture, let's look at a few phrases, a few terms that are important here for our course. Let's talk about ethnic identity. It's the identification and adoption of beliefs and customs of that culture. How people will be completely, they can identify with a particular ethnic group, that they have adopted their particular norms of that group. Recently, I watched a fascinating Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith and her mom and daughter. And there was a young woman there who was adopted. She was African American. Her mom is African American lady who was homeless. And a white family from the Midwest adopted this little black baby, basically. And I want to guess she was around in her mid-30s by now. Well, it was fascinating because the young lady began to tell the story of how she really, although she is racially African American, she does not ethnically identify with being a black person. And she really identifies because of how she grew up, where she grew up, her beliefs, her customs, her values, the way she grew up in the schools. Even though she looked one way, her identity, she said she's much more comfortable around people who are white than she is people that are her own color. That's how she identifies. Now let's talk about another phrase, acculturation. It is the process by which you learn the rules and norms of a culture that's different from your native culture. Remember, don't think race, your native culture. So, my husband and I are an example. I am, as you know, African American, but my husband is Jamaican American. And so both of us have had to do some adopting of each other's cultures through the process of acculturation. There are certain things that were just odd to me that he did. And if I tell you, he would not be happy about it, so I won't. But there are things culturally that were harder for him. For example, from a cultural perspective, I grew up playing games, whether it's baseball in the streets, in the neighborhood, basketball. Not that I was very good, but my family always played games. We grew up maybe playing Monopoly. Now we're big card players. We played spades. We played Crazy Eights. We play I Declare War. We play all types of games, all types of card games especially. It's just a part of my family's norms and values. It's a way we celebrate by ending the night playing cards. Well, that was vastly different from how my husband grew up in Jamaica. He'd say, well, Kimyetta, I didn't grow up playing cards, and so I don't really like it. And I'd say, well, what about Monopoly? Or what about Uno? And I named different things. And he'd say, nope, didn't do that. Checkers, nope. Chess, nope. Sorry, nope. I mean, I just go through the things and I say, well, what did you do as a kid? He says, in Jamaica, we grow up playing in the creek. We play in the yard. That's your fun, with sticks. Playing with sticks is no fun to me. But culturally, that's how he grew up. And so we had to adapt to one another, which is acculturation. So he had to learn how to work with me and what I like and how I grew up. So he does play Uno. He does play board games with my family. He does play different games. He plays Monopoly. He'll play on video games with the kids because of the process of acculturation. I mentioned that because for some of you, you'll need to adopt that. And then there's assimilation. And that is the process of completely assimilating into the dominant culture's values, beliefs, and language. Completely assimilating, which is beyond acculturation. Now, to a certain degree, the young lady from Red Table Talk, that's exactly what she did. Now, I'm not saying either of these are right or wrong, but I am saying you have to identify where you are in relation to people who are culturally different and how you can best relate. Speaking of which, we'll end on this slide. Now, how do you get more effective, though? This is a quick look at it. We're going to dive deeper into the relate part of our course as you proceed to the upcoming modules. But how can we just take a quick snapshot of effectively connecting, integrating, understanding, communicating with people who are different? Well, number one, I want to congratulate you. It is what you're doing right now, educating yourself. Don't just assume you know about a particular culture. Don't just assume based on what the news says. Educate yourself. Make it first person contact, not second, third, fourth degree contact. Next, recognize the differences between you and different people. It's okay if their accent is different. It's okay if their dialect is different. My mother-in-law has a very thick Jamaican accent, and after 20 years of marriage to my husband, I am still challenged with attempting to understand her dialect when speaking to me. But it's okay because I recognize the fact that we are different, and it's fine. Confronting your own stereotypes, being honest with yourself and saying, wait a minute, the thought that just went through my mind, or the joke that was just sent via text, or what I just said to someone in my household, it's a stereotype and it's wrong. Next, reducing ethnocentrism. Remember that word, we learned about it. Ethnocentrism, believing your particular culture or your race or your sex, your religion is more dominant or better or higher than other people. You've got to reduce it. It's okay to have a certain amount of pride, but be very mindful. And last, adjust. Begin to adjust your own communication, not changing who you are. You don't have to change who you are, but adjust so that you can better relate to other people. We'll learn more about that coming very soon. I hope this is helpful.